Good evening, Hawks fans. Well, it was a genuine smashing from the Pies against the Hawks on what was billed as a Friday night blockbuster. Losing by 51 points, it was for a second week in a row that a team we've had dominance over in recent history has beaten us very easily. Joined tonight by Chris, it feels like our season right now is hanging on by a thread, which is weird to say after the start we had. Very difficult fortnight ahead. How are you feeling about the state of the team at the moment?
Yeah, definitely at the crossroads right now. I know we had a tough run and we expected that, but I think we probably expected to maybe pick up at least one victory through those last three games.
Yep.
And didn't need. Oh, actually, the Gold Coast game was close. We actually put in a decent effort there, but the last 2 weeks, dismal, absolutely dismal. So, and couldn't come into two tougher opponents at the moment. Two teams in really good form, Bulldogs and Adelaide. So my feeling's a little bit off at the moment. I just don't know how we're going to turn it around, but maybe we can.
Yeah, I mean, if we can turn it around at 0-5 last season, there's no telling what, the limits to that are. But Mitchell spoke about last season how hard it was to turn that around. And yeah, it's going to take a little bit of that type of effort and maybe even more this time this year. It was a game that I don't know. I went into the game thinking we had a chance, but was like, yeah, we could lose and that's okay. But the performance I saw was, one of the worst or most frustrating, I think, in a while, mainly because me as a fan, and I feel like a lot of people agree, I feel like we made just some shocking decisions, especially from the coach's box, which just dumbfounded me at different points of that game. And that was the most frustrating part. I understand that we were missed kicks and lack of tackling, and a lot of I guess blame for that game can go on the players for sure. But I felt like we were really nearly set up to lose with what happened at selection, and then what happened at the start of the game, referring mainly to the Blake Hardwick pushing him forward again when they have a number of dominant smalls there that lit up the stage while he was rotting away in that forward line.
Yeah, it is strange. I think Sam did touch on it in the presser that he was sort of carrying an injury. So it is a strange decision to make. But you look like a genius when he gets through the game and you win. So, yeah, I don't know. But the first quarter was actually good.
Yep.
We were punching blow for blow. It was a really close contest. And then after that point in time, we absolutely lost the plot.
Yeah.
I don't know how or why. Have you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that was interesting. Like, I was watching that first quarter and I go, okay, we're actually showing up today. This is good. This is what I like to see. And Ginnivan started red hot, which you love. He loves playing with the Pies. And one of our only really positive from that game was Ginnivan's performance by the end of it. And yeah, it was just weird how they could start so hot and then it's just completely capitulate from the second quarter to the end of the game. Never showed anything else for the rest of the game.
Yeah, well, the elephant in the room, as Kerry's just mentioned here, tackling. After last week's game against Brisbane, and Sam did say it was a focus during the week, but where was it? Like, that's on the players. You can do whatever you want with game plans and whatnot, but I mean, Collingwood did move the ball exceptionally well, but where was the tackling? Where was the pressure? It's just disappointing.
Yep. It's an interesting one because I saw lots of Hawks fans on social media going, okay, Ginnivan said post-match, we'll bring our mouthguards to training this week and, it's all going to be fine. They'll turn it around. But as you said, what they did at training this week was grappling and tackling. Timmy, I think, posted a few photos from that, or someone else did at training, and mouthguards are there. They were tackling, and what they delivered was 82 to 38 tackles. That is an enormous deficit. Now, you spoke to me before, Chris, that Pies actually haven't really lost a tackle count this year. It is really, one of their best strengths, besides, you said, the GWS game. So, but still, like, a deficit of that much is genuinely embarrassing, and it's time to look in the mirror for some of these players because it's not good enough.
Well, Craig McRae did say it was their biggest tackle differential in history. So they've played exceptionally well, and credit to them for the way they set up their game plan. But, I mean, typically when teams win, their tackle count is less because, they've got the ball more. The opposition's tackling them. But Yeah, and to have that differential and to win by that margin, like they played phenomenally well. They're a scary thought right now, and I don't know. It's a big turnaround from being where we are now to potentially challenging them come September.
Yeah, exactly. It would be, if we are to, go on and make finals this season and we do face it, would be very interesting to see how we go against them again. But yeah, speaking of, that tackle count differential is historically bad. It's not just a one-off that, we can come back from it next week. That is like genuinely one of the worst, 7th highest on record in the game's history, and the widest since 2021. So, and for us to also lose by 51 points and still record that, that low number of tackles is, it's one that really needs to be looked at this weekend by the entirety of the playing group. And there's, we talked about last week, some honest conversations. Geez, there better be some this week, that's for sure.
Yeah, and then without looking at all the stats, I know there's several players that have not recorded a single tackle in the last sort of 2 or 3 weeks, definitely in individual games, where it's to the point where it's nearly 10 of the team haven't recorded a tackle. It's sort of like, I know there's certain players that are a little bit more aggressive and defensive with the way they play. Someone like an Amon isn't probably a huge tackler, so you might sort of give him a little bit of leeway for being low on tackle counts, but there's sort of no excuse for anybody to play a 4 quarters of footy and not lay a tackle. It blows my mind.
Yeah, and if anyone doesn't know, just laying your hands on someone and bringing them to ground is not a tackle. It actually has to affect the disposal. So we may have been laying a few more what looked like tackles, but they're just not strong enough to affect, the disposal of the Collingwood player. And whether that's in strength or lack of passion or lack of effort, I don't know. It can be hard to tell. I wasn't going to rewatch the game to see what happened there, but it's one that's really, it is could be a somewhat easy fix that they, that hunger lights in their belly. I'm sure the media will be talking about how horrible we are this week, but maybe it lights a fire and we go out and, record 100 tackles against the Doggies next week. But it's an interesting one. It was, especially in that midfield, on the point here, we won clearances. So we've spoken about how the midfield was struggling. We lost clearances the last few weeks. We won finally, but didn't mean much at all. We just, turn over the ball almost instantly after it.
Well, that's the thing. They punished us from turnover. I think one of the stats I heard the commentators say during the night was that Geelong is the number 1 team in the comp for time in forward 50 and for converting score, I think was the way they phrased it. So I don't know what the metrics are based on whether it's time or possession or however they calculate it, but at 28%, and then Collingwood were running at 50%. That's nearly double the best in the comp. So we virtually had no chance. So and I don't know if you can really blame the back line. Is it the midfielders not pulling their weight, letting the ball in so easy, or is it the back line not pulling their weight? I don't know. You're at the ground, so you could probably get a better vantage point than watching on TV. What did you...
Yeah, as I said, I was at the ground for most of the day, not the entire day. For first time in a very, very, very long time, I left a little bit early just to get ahead of the crowd that was there. And it's not something I do lightly. I think for me personally, it was extremely frustrating because what I thought could help us win was just not being done. So I felt, you normally feel helpless in the stands, but it was feeling quite dire. So I was like, I'll just catch the last little bit on the train. But it was a game that I think could really, make or break the season. It could really go downhill from here. Like missing you go through our fixture. It's once you don't have a few wins, the fixture starts looking a lot tougher because games against people like Adelaide down at Launceston that you go, okay, we should probably win that. You go, well, now who knows, especially in the next couple of weeks. And we do have a bye coming up in a couple of weeks. But, last time we had our mid-season bye, we came back to the Port game, which was a disaster as well. So I don't know how well the bye will help us. But, it's definitely a pretty interesting next 2 weeks. And I don't know. I can't say that I'm super looking forward to it, but I want them to show me something, and hopefully they've got the ability to do against a very informed Doggies team.
Well, that shows how important it was getting those wins early in the season. Sort of keeps us in contention at the moment. But yeah, between Bulldogs and Adelaide, they're probably two of the most dangerous teams at the moment in form. Whether I don't know what Bulldogs are like coming off a bye, that could play to our favour. But
interesting, yep.
Yeah, they're looking super dangerous. They move the ball super quick, like Collingwood do. So we've got to make some serious changes to our game style if we're to stop them, because I feel like they're probably going to want to get us back after that elimination final last year.
Yeah, exactly. They'll have some hunger for sure after that loss end of last year. So for me personally, maybe we can have a chat about, kind of the game plan, and that's a point.
That's the thing. We moved the ball quicker in that first quarter when we were competitive, and then we just slowed the ball down. I don't know if that's due to Collingwood's the way they defended the ground, but I think you've got to move the ball quicker and take those risks, because it's just what we're doing is not working. And when we move it quick is when we score. So,
yep. Yeah, and also saw some pictures after in the rooms. I'm pretty sure it was after that game on social media, and no one's looking too happy. I saw Ginnivan and Watson maybe having a little bit of a laugh, which I think probably Ginnivan, if anyone deserves to, have a smile on their face after that game, it's him. But yeah, the rest of them just look quite distraught, which is good to know that they're feeling hurt, because you wouldn't want them, not caring about what's happening. And I'm sure they do at the moment. But there's not as much joy as there was this time last year, I think, and not having as much fun with their football, which is what the whole club spoke about, was really a driving force behind their resurgence last year, was them, having fun and being excited to play every week. And it feels like maybe some of the guys aren't feeling that at the moment.
Well, it does feel like the Sallies have been put away a little bit. And to me, you want to do it at the right time. You don't want to be doing
absolutely
it either. But it does feel like we're not, playing with that enthusiasm that we were last year. And that's it. That winning feeling, you get on a roll. You're on a high. When you're losing, it is hard to turn it around. So you just don't want to be losing by that much. Like I said, that Gold Coast game, we played great. In those conditions, and I thought that was a really, like, you don't want to say about a loss being a good effort, but it was. The last 2 weeks, you just sort of like, what's going on? Where is that effort? Like, where's the Hawthorn that we know? Like, from last year, that team, our lineup hasn't really changed much. So where's the difference between last year's team and this year's team? Like, where are we going wrong?
Well, supposedly, I mean, if you look at our finals team that played the Doggies last year, there was no Day there either. So we don't need to say, Day's the only reason we're losing, because while he's a massive, massive out, we still won a final without him. So, the only thing that is added is a few more supposedly better players than what we had last year in Battle and Barras. And you think, well, hopefully them being brought in is not messing up our structure too much. But I think the back line is one that's still going reasonably well at the moment. It's the midfield and the forward line that's really struggling. And I'd love to know your thoughts on Cam McKenzie. He was dropped out of the side, potentially still maybe dealing with a hand complaint. I mean, I watched in the VFL, he just wasn't as dominant as I would have expected him to be. Maybe that, as I said, the hand is holding him back a little bit from tackling or some of those things like that. But felt weird that we dropped a midfielder who I think has had a better year than someone like Ward when we were already struggling in there.
I will answer that question, but I will just mention again, Kerry mentioned at the start of the episode about the inclusion of Barras and Battle, which you've pretty much just sort of touched on there, and how much that has affected our structure. The likes of Scrimshaw and Sicily sort of down on their normal performances, and is that due to those guys changing the way they play and their role in the team? It is a tough one, but Barras and Battle are playing quite well, so it's a tough one if it is affecting the others. But we're stuck with it now. Cam McKenzie, I
Yep.
think, I don't know if his hand's giving him some grief. I thought he had played quite well coming back from it. And I just wondered whether they were just sort of resting him to try and just sort of give his hand a little bit more time to heal. But what did he went down and had about 20 touches, didn't he, at Box Hill, I think?
Yeah, let me just double check. He wasn't one of the best who Box Hill also lost to Collingwood's VFL side. So it wasn't a good week for the boys in brown and gold, sadly.
Well, Box Hills, I think, was on top of the ladder. I'm not sure now.
Yeah,
and it was a close contest, but we just had have what it took at the end of the game when it was in contention.
Yeah, they're into second now, as Shane's pointed out here. Mackenzie had the 22. So, yeah, just looked a little bit maybe, as I said, not up to what I would expect for him to go do at VFL level. Maybe we can, segue on to talking about VFL, because one of my main gripes for the game was there was no reward for effort at Box Hill the week before, when there was an absolute domination from them and a lot of the AFL listed players down there. And it was interesting that after such a average loss against the Brisbane Lions, that Mitchell didn't want to, or the selection community didn't want to reward any players down at Box Hill. And I mean, most of the boys talking about Husway, Butler and Seamus Mitchell backed it up again this week. So Seamus Mitchell 35 and a goal with 2 tackles, Husway 32 and 5 tackles. And Sam Butler, 29, is continuing his run in the midfield and 11 tackles. So if we're looking for tacklers, Butler's the one. I think Sarong had another game. They've moved him kind of to the wing now, which is interesting for him. He's a very tall man to be playing on the wing, but it's working nicely. And he slotted the 2 goals this weekend as well. So that's another one we could look to bring in for potentially someone like CJ, who played some time on the wing this weekend. But yeah, would love to see a few of these guys get a game. He backed them in last week, and I said, okay, you can back your players in, but you need that response. And there was no response. So now you need to start rewarding the VFL players before they get to complacency in the AFL side, that they think that they're not replaceable, when at the end of the day, nearly every single one of them are at this point.
Yep. Interesting. You mentioned that about Jai Sarong and changing positions, because I did speak to him on the player sponsor night. I'm like, mate, it is bloody hard to get into that back line at the moment, just when you've recruited 2 stars. And I'm like, have you spoke to them about moving positions at all? And he's like, yeah, I've mentioned it. So it is good that they've sort of experimenting a little bit. Same with Butler, because Butler wouldn't normally play that midfield role, and he's absolutely shone during this last few weeks. So maybe they do need to experiment a little bit more. Seamus Mitchell is another one who I don't think he's done much wrong when he's come into AFL level. But here he is still not getting a game. So again, he's probably a little bit more pigeonholed to that backline sort of role, whereas the other 2 might be a little bit more flexible, whether they go forward, wing, midfield kind of. But yeah, I think we are due for some changes. I think Sam just sort of needs to, let the guys know that their spots aren't guaranteed and they need to earn them.
And you know what the interesting thing about that, the only player that did really get dropped this week that you wouldn't expect was Ginnivan, and look what's happened to him. He's got dropped, played 1 game, came back, one game, I think it was, at Box Hill, and came back and has, returned to or at least to what we expected from him at the start of the year. And, as I said, one of the only positives from Friday was his game. So it's been proven to work. I'm not sure why we haven't pulled the pin on some of these players yet, but I think hopefully we see a few changes this week. It's been really hard to read the team at the moment, because I can go in any week thinking we'll make 5 changes or we'll go unchanged. And it's been interesting to see what they're doing. But hopefully this week, I don't really care if we're probably going to lose. I mean, who knows at the end of the day. But if we were to lose, I'd much rather see Sam Butler, Husway, Seamus Mitchell in there making, some mistakes, but you can guarantee they'd be trying their guts out, unlike maybe some of these senior players who weren't looking up to it on the weekend.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's a hard one to drop these players, but that's the tough calls they've got to make as coaching staff. That's their job. So I do think, like you said, that these players in the VFL have earned their spots. It's not like they've just had one good game. They've had
No,
several
exactly.
good games. So time to throw them in the deep end and see if they can deliver on the big stage. So, well, who would be your preference to come in?
I think Butler would be a good one. I think now he's been rewarded and, he's worked his absolute butt off to get back from what was an absolutely shocking injury he had last year. So I think he deserves a go. Maybe even if he's a sub, I mean, he's someone that could come on and impact as sub, whereas someone like Finn McGuinness, who, unless he's tagging, never has that type of impact, especially as a sub, when he's the type of player who stands out by playing a full game and can, continue running out the 4 quarters. So him being sub is just confusing to me. But yes,
he does have the flexibility of playing probably back.
Yeah, he does.
So he's got flexibility on who. It doesn't matter who gets subbed off. He can pretty much go on and fill that role. But he's not probably an impact player that you want as a positive sub.
No, exactly. And I think, potentially Butler in maybe as sub, and would love to see Hustwaite get a game. I think, he didn't do much wrong to be subbed out when he was. I think, especially that quarter, he had 5 disposals, 100% disposal efficiency, and then was subbed at halftime, which I thought was interesting. But for him to come in, anyone who's ready to tackle, I mean, if they're still going to play Hardwick forward, which would absolutely boggle my mind, to be honest, if they kept that up, especially, he's dominated against Cody Waitman in recent years. He won't be playing, but they still have some dangerous smalls, the Western Bulldogs team. So, but if they're going to continue playing Hardwick forward, we'll bring in Seamus Mitchell for someone, anyone really down back there. I mean, Scrimshaw got subbed off. I did hear that he was a little bit sore, but the last few times players have been subbed off, they have been dropped. So I don't know if that's something they're going to do with him as well. But yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing Seamus in.
Oh, even if it's not being dropped, just to have a rest and
exactly.
They have their body, recover for a week. But don't know what else we do. Rammers had some good games. Do you try him down forward? Cal Shadir is another one who's sort of, he got thrown into Gold Coast probably a little bit too quickly. I felt. He has shown some good signs down there at Box Hill, but still not probably knocking the door down, is he?
No, exactly. I mean, he's showing some good signs by that. I mean, tackling, he's taking some good marks, which we expect from him. Is he having the scoreboard impact we would love to see before we brought him in? Probably not. But I think he's the type of player that would work better in an AFL team than he would in a VFL team, because you should be getting better delivery. There's some players that are like that, especially like small forwards and stuff, that if they're not dominating the VFL, it's not necessarily just because they are down on form. It's because, the other players around them that are delivering them the ball just aren't as good. But, I would love to see that change. I think Deary, it doesn't have to be Deary, as you said. Ramsden, who's been, just ticking along well at Box Hill, could come in and be an option. I'm just kind of sick of the moving around players. Like Weddle seems to be the one that's kind of working at the moment. I mean, Sicily hasn't been moved in a while. Hardwick down there, as I've said multiple times, I'm not a fan of at all. So it feels like we're just not getting any consistency into this team, which is partly because of injuries, but also partly because players are being moved every single week. So it's hard to know, where the players are going to be. And I think a few people, I can't remember who said it, but just saying we looked a bit confused, which is honestly true. And that's the most worrying part. You shouldn't look confused. You should know what the game plan is and where your teammates are going to be. Even if you are, an average side, that's the one thing you should know is what you should be doing out there, even if you can't execute it. But not loving it at the moment.
Yeah, it does feel like there's some synergy missing at the moment. And like you said, it is having that with your teammates and knowing where they're going to be and what they're going to do, whether that be in offense or defense. It's sort of knowing what your teammates are going to do helps you know what you've got to do. It's sort of everybody's on the same page and it all works. It just seems like we're not all on the same page at the moment, which sort of, as soon as you're not got that cohesion, the game just falls apart.
Yeah, who did have a pretty good game for Box Hill on the weekend was Reeves, which was looking like it was going to be really important if we thought Meek would get a couple of weeks off. But luckily escaped any sanction from that, which is great to see. I felt like by the way the media was talking that he was getting 4 or 5 weeks, but it's good to see that there's some common sense happening at AFL headquarters at the moment. So yeah, lovely that we'll have Meek. I mean, he's the type of matchup that should do well on someone like Tim English, who he could really punish, with his bigger body. So yeah, very lucky that we've still got Meek, because I think it would have been pretty, as I said, Reed's played well, and he has actually been doing pretty well at Box Hill the last few weeks. And I thought when he came in the Gold Coast game, he did what he needed to do, didn't go above expectations, but I feel like he didn't go below what we expected of him. So, but yeah, good that we've got Meeky for the next couple of weeks now.
Yeah, it was an odd one because he did come in late. It wasn't super late. There was no, as they described, he didn't change his action. He had his eyes on the ball, so there was no sort of malicious act in it. And from what I seen in the footage, I didn't see Lipinski hit his head on the ground, so I can only assume that it was from impact in the air. But I'd be interested to know how he failed that concussion test, and obviously we don't want to see it, and hope he recovers fully from that. But I just felt like he come off the ground, he seemed alert, his eyes, like he ran off the ground, not the typical concussion that you normally see.
Yeah, exactly. As we said, hope all is well with him, but as I said, it makes sense to me why that was not a suspension, especially looking back on something like the Cox.
After the Alex Pierce one got off too.
Yep, the Cox and the Rory Lobb one was another one earlier in the year, which was quite similar. So, yeah, thankfully we've got Meek around for the next few weeks. But seeing a few comments about Ward, maybe we could have a discussion about him. Feels like we always end up talking about him, whether he plays really well or plays average or somewhere in between. It feels like the whole kind of Hawthorn fans are divided on him. I mean, I thought he was all right. In the Brisbane game, I think he was one of the ones to not lay a tackle, which as a midfielder is shocking. But they had a couple this week, I believe. So, that's good to see. Not necessarily anything warranted to be dropped, I don't think. But, that whole midfield is not lining it up at the moment. And I'd much rather, I want to see Newcomb and Warple and Nash, those type of guys, to really take hold of a game over the last few weeks. So if Wardy's not doing it, how could I criticise him when Newcomb and Warple aren't doing it either?
Well, Nash is an interesting one after having a 4-week spell on the sideline due to his suspension. I feel like his body should be feeling great. It just seems like he's just lost that momentum, and hopefully he can regain the form that he had prior. And obviously he plays a different role to what the others do in that midfield, but it just seems like he hasn't quite clicked the last couple of weeks. So hopefully, and especially coming up against Bontempelli, you would think that that's a role that's going to suit his game style. So hopefully he can sort of find that form that he was playing with last year.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. He is the type of guy that is, as you said, he does stuff just a little bit out of touch at the moment. I mean, I did see someone say we should drop him, but when we've got, a matchup like Bontempelli, in Bontempelli still had some great games against us, but I think Nash at least can quell a little bit of his influence. So he will be an important one to have next week. But that midfield, I think they just need to change it up a little bit. And I thought it was interesting that I thought they might, because they dropped Mackenzie, might throw someone else in there, maybe someone a little bit more unexpected. Like Weddle had 1 or 2 CBAs the prior week towards the end of the game. Maury's been in and around it a little bit. I thought they might boost his numbers up, but they kind of just stuck fat with those 4 guys there. And didn't. While they did win clearances, it wasn't effective in the end.
Yeah, you're spot on there. It's the effectiveness of those clearances, and we're just not using the ball as well as the other teams. You've seen Brisbane, as soon as they got their clearances, the widespread handballs, and then it's just an uncontested, easy kick, whereas ours are probably a bit more contested and just not hitting our targets going forward. So if you can't hit your targets going forward, you're not going to win games. Simple as that. Yeah, absolutely. I would like to see, if we are getting soundly beaten next week and, they don't make any major changes by bringing in some midfielders, I would love to see them just,
try something new. Yeah, as we said, we saw Weddle in the middle towards the end of end of the Brisbane game. So give that a go. I mean, yeah, he said he wants to play in the midfield in his future career. So why not start it now? I mean, have a few people want Watson in there when we need speed. That could be an option. I mean, he's gone in there a couple of times this year. We haven't really won a clearance yet with him in there, I don't think. But he's just maybe just a touch too small at the moment without having really any preseason in there. So, but yeah, that pace, we definitely need someone in there. So it could be an option. Even, you know, Sicily, put him on the ball, see what happens. I don't know. With someone like him, I mean, lots of comments coming through about Sicily. I feel like we've spoken about him for the last month and a half. So there's only so much we can say. Yes, he's out of form. Yes, I'm sure he knows that. Do I think he's injured? I don't really know. Mitchell has now categorically said in his press conference that he is absolutely fine. The groin is not an issue, and he was pretty strong. He's pretty strong in those words that he's not injured. Yeah, I don't think it's to the point where you question whether they take the captaincy off him, which I have seen a few times, and not sure it's at that level yet. But, you know, even when Stratton was captain, he had periods where he was really down on form, and I think he was nearly being called to be dropped a couple of times in his when he was leading the club. So it is a big role as a player, and maybe when all is going well, it's pretty easy to be a captain. Yeah. So now that it's going average, the team's going average, it's definitely a lot harder mentally, and especially when you're down on form. But it's definitely that confidence loss. I feel like he just needs one really good game and it can just turn it around, which I'm hoping we'll see in the next couple of weeks.
Well, it's a thing you don't see off field, what happens at training, what gets said behind closed doors. He's still probably a leader, and we're just not seeing him do it talking with his performance, whereas he probably still is leading on field and directing the group. So yes, it is a hard one, and it is a huge call to drop a captain. It's been done plenty of times. Is he getting close to that? Maybe, but it seems like you said Sam's defended him profusely, so it's sort of like a parent defending their kid when they've done something wrong. I don't know. Like you're never going to back down, I think. So until he makes that call of if he ever does make that call of dropping him, but I mean, half the team could get dropped on form at the moment. So
absolutely. Now, as I've said, I've talking to other Hawks supporters. Genuinely, you could drop anyone from that team besides probably Ginnivan, and maybe say like Newcomb and Meek, those guys who are really important. You just back in every week. Everyone else, Nelly, could be on the chopping block and I wouldn't be mad at it because you don't want to see players rewarded for a lack of effort, which we saw on Friday night. And I think Tony's hit it on the head here. This is what I agree with. Just put them down back. Let them sit there for 6 weeks. Work together as a group. Don't chop and change them anymore, and just get back to that, that back line that we know and love.
Yeah, you say that. You got Sicily, Dimmer. You're not moving Barras and Battle. Maybe you could move Battle, but you've got them as locks. You've probably got Scrimshaw as a lock. Like, we've probably got 10 defenders right now.
Oh, yeah.
And it's sort of an Amon. Where do you put Amon?
Yeah.
It's easy decision to say, oh, yeah, put him on a wing, but when you got Massimo and Morrison holding down those positions, it's pretty hard you got to move them somewhere else. It just sort of, it's a snowball effect. So it's a tough one what they do because it hasn't been working. Like you said with that, it's sometimes they go forward and, tear it apart for a quarter, kick a few goals, but it just sort of hasn't been happening consistently enough to warrant it happening. So I think that would be the best move right now is to move him back into that back line and settle it. And it is probably a Weddle who's been they've persisted with him down back, and maybe it's time for Weddle to sort of play a different position or a different role.
Yeah. I think we named 9 defenders on the weekend, which is just probably one too many for what we're doing at the moment. I mean, obviously Hardwick ended up playing forward for most of that game until it was way too late and then he got moved back. But just an interesting one that you don't want to go the getting Barras and Battle was a mistake. there was lots of talk about at the time we should have only got one of them. And I was kind of a defender that, no, I think both can work together. And while I do think they're working together as individually, is that what's affecting some of those players down back? I don't know. It's really hard to tell. Whereas we've got so much depth in that back line, we don't have much in any other spot. So, yeah, then could be an interesting off-season at the end of this year if it does continue to kind of spiral this season. Maybe we just see a few players just training in brand new positions over the off-season to try and get them in.
The thing was, Jamie Allett was just wreaking havoc, and it was sort of like that was the typical Hardwick role. And it sort of seemed strange that they just kept persisting with the same setup without making that change earlier.
Totally. I think the second I saw Hardwick line up, I sent out a tweet being like, hey, hope Elliott doesn't have a big game. Bang, first goal, wasn't it? Then he goes on to kick. Yeah, do I think if Hardwick played on him the entire game, he wouldn't have kicked a goal? No, I don't think that at all. But I think we probably influenced a little bit. They had battle on him. They moved a few others on him at different points. And then finally Hardwick back on him towards the end of the game. But I said it was arrogance. I mean, it's a pretty harsh word to say, but I find it hard to understand how that move could not have been made after his first goal, basically. If they wanted to start him forward, okay, but as soon as you see him kick 2, 3, then you've got to pull the trigger. And yeah, mate, I thought it was a bit arrogant from the coach's box to have that instead of being spoke about this with Timmy actually a little bit. I feel like we've been very reactive over the last couple of few weeks, so we're not starting anything differently. We are just backing our team in week after week, which is fine when you're going really well. But when you're starting to lose and you're slipping away and the season's slipping away from you, you've got to start being proactive. And one of those, in my opinion, should have been, not that I think he had an amazing, game, Dacos, but would have been nice to see Finn just go up to him straight away and do something, shake up their system a little bit, make them react to us instead of we react to what they're doing.
Well, yeah, it was interesting you say that, but and at the same point, Craig McRae was sort of like, well, I understand the decision not to be defensive and tag him after when you're 5 goals down, you've got to attack, you've got to win.
Yep.
So it's a tough call to make these changes, and be defensive per se, but sometimes that's where it starts. You shut down their good players, and then they have to go to plan B, and that's when you can sort of get on top. But yeah, we're just not seeing them make those decisions, or we don't see. I'm not seeing them make these decisions and go to plan B, plan C. It seems like it's just plan A, and if it doesn't work, then
bad luck.
Yeah, pretty much, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I think, Peter's definitely hit the nail on the head here with we need that extra midfielder with a bit of pace, and was announced during the week, I think it was, that we now may be interested in someone like Sam Walsh. Him as a player, I feel like I haven't been the biggest fan of him, especially recently, because I feel he had a few good seasons. Now he seems to just be off the ball, and I think he's a little bit overrated at the moment. But I think for someone like him, he could play a role in our team that is better than what he's playing in at Carlton at the moment. By that I mean purely outside speed, pace, and kicking. That's all we need from a player like him. So, which is at Carlton they're relying on him more a bit to get the ball. When we've got people like Newcomb and Warple and Daisy, we just need that outside run. But here's another one that's quite injury prone, has those hamstrings and I think calf problems every now and then. So, we've already got one injury prone midfielder. Do we need another? And yeah, he's not as all the comments are saying, he's a pretty average kick. Warple is quite similar in the sense that just get it out of the midfield, bang it on the boot and get it as far forward as you can without even looking. But as I said, maybe if we can get him on the outside, he has a bit more time to think about his kick, maybe that's different. But yeah, we need to start looking for another midfielder, and we've hopefully got a decent pick with Carlton's first rounder this year. And I know now we can trade future first rounders for the next couple of years, which is different to what it has been in the past. So yeah, at this point, do we just ignore the draft and get that one player? I mean, of course, Butters is the number one. no Walsh, no Harley Reid, nothing like that. Butters would absolutely be number one on their list. I can guarantee it. But very tricky to price someone like him out of Port Adelaide. And still contracted. And there's nearly half the league would be lining up for Butters with probably a little bit better offers than what we can give them at the moment.
Yeah, it's a hard one to try and, like you said, pry a player out of that position. But Port aren't travelling too well at the moment, so it would be something he may consider. It's a matter of pleasing Port Adelaide as a club, as far as you're probably paying overs, in my opinion. So tough call. I think everything changes as soon as Will Day's back in that midfield and everything settles down. Is it that important? Probably we're running around with a B grade midfield at the moment. I don't think you put anyone as an A grader. I think, I think Will Day's the A grader that we're sort of lacking at the moment, and he just lifts everyone around him. So, how important is it to get that? But we've just got to get through this season and I guess see where we're lacking towards the end. We're looking at getting Mitch Lewis back probably in another sort of month or so. Hopefully Dia starts to hit some form. So, it's a totally different forward line as soon as you change those players.
Yeah, for sure. Mitch Lewis, they did announce like a week or two ago that he did suffer a minor setback with a calf niggle, I think it was. So they're looking for him to play VFL after our bye, I believe. He'll at least need 2-3 games in the VFL. Probably the first one will be a half and then try and get some full games from there. But hopefully all is well with Lewis. It would be good to get him back. I think people can kind of forget the form he was in before. Well, not before he got injured last year, but before he got injured the previous years when he was really kicking on, when we as a team were struggling a lot more. And it'd be good to bring him in. And the club seems pretty confident on getting Daisy back before finals if we get there.
3 games. I think 3 games before finals is what.
I did hear round 20 floated out, which would be amazing. I'm sure he's got some scans and stuff, so hopefully we'll get an update maybe on Tuesday, I think, is when they drop the injury reports. But we need him back. We need him back, and it sucks that our most important player is our most injury prone player.
Well, I think we've done well tonight, Loz, not to dwell too much on all the negatives. But moving towards this week, how do we beat the Bulldogs? Trying to be positive. How do we beat them? Yeah,
good question. I mean, they were kind of our first win last year that really meant something. I think we beat North prior to that. But, at Marvel, we beat them when we were in very average form. We're back here again. This win is desperate and we need it. And we need to show something at least. And, I normally back clubs in, especially, someone like our team, to perform after a few disaster weeks. And I used to see it, when we were back in our the absolute prime, 13, 14, 15, even 16, all the way to 18, where we would have 1 or 2 down games. And then you could automatically go, we're going to win the next week because these boys just always respond. I think it's a sign of a good mentally strong team to be able to, have some down games, but really turn it on. And I think that's how we get it done, by pure passion and drive and, by absolutely tackling the crap out of them.
Nice goal, Greg.
I think, they don't have Sam Darcy, which is an interesting one for them. And he's back potentially the week after, so it might be nice to just play them without him this week. But they've got an interesting team that is really dominant against some of those bottom sides. So if it can go wrong, it can go really, really wrong. But we just have to just try and match it in that midfield, play one of his better games for the year, and those Battle and Barras do what they do in that back line and keep taking those intercept marks. And we need to just get our kicking back to what it was. It's so weird how I feel like we haven't had I feel like at the start of the year we were a little bit overrated in the sense that we were premiership favourites and we hadn't really played one full amazing game yet. I still kind of think that's the case. And what we were doing, though, we were in a great kicking side, and for something like that to just drop off completely, and we saw more of that hawk ball movement, with the handballing game. We just haven't seen that recently. Even in some of the games where we won against some of those lower sides, we didn't look 100% back to that, fast-paced ball movement. So, yeah, I think we can win. I would be surprised if we did, but I'm not completely ruling us out, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would have said MCG would have been our preferred venue, but I think our Marvel Stadium form actually hasn't been too bad over the last few years. So will be interesting because you do have to play a different style of footy, and maybe that is what changes. Maybe we're going to have to lower our eyes.
Yep.
We can't be bombing big high balls into that forward line with Rory Lobb and the others in the Bulldogs back line, because they're just going to eat marks for breakfast. So
yeah,
quicker ball movement, lower the eyes, get those. If I'd just rather see it just a mongrel kick along the ground, go in the forward line than a big bomb. So,
absolutely.
But yeah, I think that quicker ball movement is definitely something we need to live or die by the sword. We just have to. We just have to do it, I think.
Yep. Yeah, definitely think. We talked about being the hunted this year rather than the hunters, and seem to not be able to, as you said, not have that plan B to go to yet. Hopefully that's something they'll look to this week. And I think, you made a good point in the sense that now we're moving ground. We haven't played Marvel for for a while now. So it'll be good to have a game there and see how we go. And if, you do have to slightly change your game plan a bit to go play at that ground. So maybe that does kind of refresh us and help. But yeah, as I said, wouldn't tip us, but I could see them winning. I could, but it would have to probably take our best. Well, it definitely would take our best performance of the year to get this win. And we'll see. We'll see how we go. I'm not going to lose complete faith yet, but we'll wait and see.
Well, it's another blockbuster for our. We were all rewarded for our form last year. We've got some big games. A Thursday night clash. Is that something you're going to get along to?
Thursday night, I don't think I'm going to go this week. This is the first game, I think, in Melbourne that hasn't been our home game or a replacement game. So, and I normally work Thursday, so it would take a while for me to get there. But don't think I'll go this week. But hey, maybe that could be the good luck charm. Maybe I've been the bad luck charm the last couple of weeks going to all these games. So, no, I think it'll be a watch from home job for me. But I am going to the game in Launceston, which, I always like going down there, and we've had good success as of recently. So, yeah, excited to get down to that one. But I do see that some of the tickets are going to be released, I think, on Tuesday for the rest of the season. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how many of those I want to go to. It might depend on how well we go this week. If we get beat by 100 points, maybe who knows how many games you want to go to for the rest of the year. But, yeah, you did mention we've been rewarded with lots of primetime games at the moment, and a bit saddening that we can't take advantage of that and put on good contests. I mean, this one was kind of the outlier. I feel like our other primetime games have been a bit better than this, but this one was pretty bad display. Luckily, they've put the fixture out for the remaining rounds a little bit earlier than this, so now we're still getting a few primetime toward the end of the year, but we'll see how we go next year if we continue on like this.
Yes, hopefully, like you said, we've discussed making some changes, whoever they are, whatever they are. Hopefully, it's for the positive, and
exactly.
And we can put up a good fight, because we need to do something, or this season's just going to get away from us, and we're going to be even struggling for a spot in the 8. We really need to turn our season around, and now's a good time to just dig deep and find what we need to do to find that win just to spark us. Yeah. Talking about Gunners, did you see how upset Gunners got when he copped that elbow?
No, I don't think I did.
Because you were at the game, you didn't see it on the TV.
Yeah.
He was filthy. I don't think I've ever seen him so upset.
Yeah, he's a pretty mild guy, is Gunston. So for him to get angry is interesting. There seems to probably be a decent amount of frustration around the club at the moment. You saw how upset Sammy was, or not necessarily upset, but how frank he was in that press conference.
Yeah.
It was quite a short one as well. I think a few commentators, journalists in there were maybe a little bit scared to ask him a few questions, and as I probably would expect, because he's quite an intimidating man, especially when he is feeling frustrated. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see his press conference that he does in the middle of the week. And Thursday night game is a reasonably quick turnaround, but it also means that they only have like two-ish main trainings this week, I think, before that game. So it's not a massive amount of time to turn things around, but you just have to keep backing them in until they prove you wrong.
Well, like I said, I'm sort of just praying that the bye for the Bulldogs, a lot of teams do struggle coming back off that bye, and that plays to our advantage. The boys, well, like I said, Sam said, he sort of asked the team, he's like, well, what's going on? I think that it's going to be one of those weeks where maybe they have to just tell some ugly truths and ask some hard questions to each other. And
yeah,
I mean, if you're not going to do it for your teammates, who are you going to do it for? So
yeah, we don't seem to have that one guy who can kind of spark us at the moment. In a few of the games at the start of the year, it was Will Day. So yeah, interesting to see that without him, we don't really have anyone who could turn a game like that around. When you're 30 points down, you can, lots of teams come back from those scenarios. So it is possible. But yeah, just no one wanted to throw that metaphorical first punch to get the ball rolling again. But hopefully, teams often start slow off the bye. So even if they do end up playing well, they might start slow. So it would be nice to have a good start. I feel like we haven't had an amazing start in the last few weeks. I mean, we did play our best quarter in the first this week, but didn't really amount to any major scoreboard pressure. So it would be nice to slot a few goals early. But yeah, it kind of proves that now we've got some real problems at the moment, which at the start of the year it's like, oh, we're not kicking straight enough at goal. Well, that seems a bit far in the rearview mirror. At the moment.
Can fix that easy. Yeah, we can fix that.
Yeah. And then you have some a lot bigger problems that are served on the platter for you over the next couple of months, and you go, okay, these are some real issues now. But you can't get too down on it. You're just the middle of the season. Every team's going to have up and downs, and maybe we're just going to be down for a while and then come back strong again. As I've said, the end of seasons have been our best for a long while now. No matter how bad we've been, we've always come home strong. And we've still got that tough fixture, but we have a few games in there that should be winnable. But yeah, it just starts to get a bit difficult when you're looking at losing next week, especially in terms of in my opinion, top four's now kind of off the table at the moment. And yeah, just wanting to make finals now, and it makes it pretty difficult if we don't beat the Doggies next week, because we've got another game against Brisbane and Collingwood later in the year, and the Brisbane one's at the Gabba, which I already gave us no chance for before this season even started, because they're just so good up there. I mean, they have had a few blips as of recently up there, but yeah, we needed to win one against Collingwood and one against Brisbane out of the 2 times we play them. So we've already lost the first 2. Can we win the next 2? Interesting. But yeah, I think we'll ask. Yeah, go, Chris.
Yeah, it's a tough ask, but you don't win premierships in May or June. So, and I mean, it was a huge effort what we did last year to go on that big run, and maybe we started that run too early and peaked too early. So, if we can peak at the right time and sort of just start to gain some momentum leading into finals, like I don't particularly care too much about finishing bottom 8, and because as soon as you have that second chance and have a week off, it can almost ruin your momentum. So it's tough to play those 4 weeks in finals, but Bulldogs did it. There's no reason why we can't do it. We just need to. We've got a lot to fix very quickly.
Yep, and there's time for that to be done. As we, Sydney were the absolute cream of the crop this time last year. They were already, engraving their name on the Premiership Cup, and we saw what happens with them. And Collingwood are the same at the moment. Do I have a little bit more faith in them? Yes, I do, because they can show that they can stand up in grand finals. But they get a few injuries, and it's really a different story, and they can fall off again. So it's a lot of momentum, and we've been on the we've had the benefits of momentum towards the end of last year. So now we're just maybe on the other side of it at the moment, where the downward or the negative momentum is not helping us at the moment. But as you said, you can have one really amazing win and it sparks everyone, especially a younger team that plays off emotion, which I feel like we've got a lot of evidence from. Going well last year when the emotions were high, and going average this year when the emotions are low. So yeah, we've got it. It'll be an interesting watch, I think. Interesting watch, a lot to learn from.
Yeah, like you said, bring back the excitement and just the celebrations, just play a bit more free, and hopefully we turn the corner.
Yep.
I did stop on the comments because we are getting close to the end of the show, so we may as well start putting some predictions in, guys, if you want to throw them in. So I'll start putting a few up here. Craig,
I did see a few come in. Yeah. Yeah,
Jacob,
I think
Hawks by 20, staying positive. I like to see that.
Good job, Jacob. Someone has to.
Tom always gives us a big breakdown, exact scores.
Yep.
That is a scoreline I do not want to see.
Yes. Gosh. Yeah. No, we don't. Oh gosh, I can't imagine if it got to 100 points. That would be
Josh,
terrible.
Dogs by 30, Gunners to kick 3 on Jones, Wiz into the middle. Be nice to see Wiz play a little bit more in the middle, especially without his impact down forward that we were used to seeing.
Yep.
Another big blowout by the Redback Spider. Hopefully you're not right.
Mm-hmm.
Inaccurate kicking.
Yeah.
Down.
Yeah.
Right.
I think for me, it's wait and see for the teams. I think a few people have said that. Shane said it here. Draw until I see teams. Yeah. If I will be a little frustrated if we back in the exact same team to go again this week. You've got to rule out complacency in the AFL side, and I feel like it's just slowly starting to creep in. And you don't want to get to the end of the year and say, yep, we have this great depth, pointing to Hustwaite and Butler and Seamus Mitchell and Sarong, and then they're all so frustrated with no reward that they just end up leaving, and then we're left, with nothing, with no depth at all. So, you need to start rewarding, and hopefully that's done this week, and I will stay positive that will happen until I see it doesn't.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to catch up with the comments. Sorry, Hawks, here we are. Another positive one, Joanne. Thanks for that one. By 50. That would be a really good confidence booster, wouldn't it?
Oh, gosh. Can you imagine? That would, probably one of our best wins in a while, for sure.
Chris, 60 plus. Wow. Yes, honesty. It is honest, but Fred as well. 60. 10 goals. I don't want to be losing by 10 goals, seriously.
No, not another one. Well, I know we didn't lose by 10, but it was close enough.
Oh, I like this. How's the positivity? Assist to kick the winner. That would be good, wouldn't it?
That wouldn't do my heart any good, but would be good to watch.
Walks by 5. Here's another one. 42. That would just really get our season back on track, wouldn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think if you get the win this week, it really can change the whole, outlook. Right now it's looking pretty doom and gloom, but that win and you go in with some confidence down at Tassie, the ground where we've had so much success. You go, okay, then we can hopefully win that one, and you can go into the bye feeling a lot better about the side. You don't want to go into the bye feeling, upset that the season's going, because it's pretty easy to stick in that mindset, even I'm assuming probably as a player, but especially as a fan as well.
10 points for Costa. 3 points. Another goal after the siren. It wouldn't do our hearts any good, but I'd be happy with a win no matter how we get it.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I think we will nearly wrap it up there. Make sure, as per usual, to subscribe on YouTube, give the video a like, turn on those notifications on YouTube so you get the notification that we're going to go live, normally about 30 minutes before. It'll let you know. Probably do an earlier stream next week, I think, with the Thursday night game. We'll get back to you about that. But follow us on all the other social media, Talking Hawks, Instagram, Facebook especially, X, Twitter. always posting updates about what's happening, what content we're producing. There's been some good game previews, some game reviews, and also 6 points as per usual will be dropping on Spotify and any of those podcast platforms over the next couple of days as well. But yeah, hopefully this is the week we turn it around. I don't want to be we've been quite negative, and I think it's fair enough to be, but it really can all change. I think, you want the response, not only from the players, but from the coaches box to show, Sam Mitchell's been called a genius by a few this year, especially Kane Corns this year and last year. So show us those smarts, Sammy. Give us something to take out of this game.
Yeah, stick fat. The boys need your support. You don't want to be like some of those other teams where they sort of jump off the bandwagon and become negative. We want to be supportive of the Hawks. So get behind the boys, and hopefully they can do us proud and turn this season around.
Yeah, wonderful. Exactly. Well, yeah, that's good. That's the point of these live streams. Feel a bit better about a loss, or really get excited about the team if it's a good win. So hopefully everyone enjoyed, and thank you all for joining us tonight and all your amazing comments. As usual, go the Hawks.